Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Heyman Marrero from Urbender, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from UdoU. Hello, everyone. Today we have a special guest. She's Claudia Vazquez, the CEO and founder of elevink, and it's a consulting firm that focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies, education, recruitment, leadership development. And it's really, her approach is really designed to drive systematic and individual level change at that level. And so she's very, very focused on supporting underrepresented talent, individuals, and really amplifying the access that they have to employers and to companies and to the corporate sectors and opportunities and all that good stuff. Claudia, I'm so excited to have you on this episode of I Have Something to Say. And how are you?
Thank you so much, Tom. It's an honor for me to be here with you and your audience. I'm doing well. We're healthy. My family's healthy. We have a lot of plans. And at this time, with the pandemic, I guess it's a blessing, to be healthy and to be hopeful about what, 2020, it's allowing us as an opportunity for us to invest in. So we're good. I'm good.
Yes, definitely. And I really wanted to talk to you because I know that in the midst of all the turmoil and all of the changes and the loss, right? When we're talking about, families being impacted by job loss, and there's in many cases a sense of hopelessness. You decided with all of your 20 plus years, no, who's counting, right? 20 years of experience in global insurance and dealing with Fortune 500 companies, you decided to spearhead this platform called elevink to really use your gift of mentorship and of supporting business owners, of supporting diverse talent that is trying to work up that corporate ladder or trying to launch their own businesses and create, right, opportunities for themselves to have the necessary resources and the tools to do so through elevink, and actually a special cohort that you just launched. And we can get into that, but it was so cool the way we met because we actually met through LinkedIn.
We did.
And this is how I'm in the know about what you're working on.
It's people have to really believe in the power of LinkedIn. It's amazing. I have a lot of success stories of individuals with less experience than what I have that have sent me notes to say, I follow you, you inspired me, thank you. Now I am volunteering at this place. Now I decided to put myself for this. So please never underestimate the power that such a tool could have, and also the realization that people are watching you, that at the end of the day, they start to look for people that think like them, that look like them. And then if they see some sort of a positive influence, or if they see that someone was able to achieve something, that propels them to think, well, if she did it, I could also do it, and I'm no one special, but I'm glad that you bring up the 20 years of experience, because now that I had to do a assessment of experiences and skill and create my own personal asset and toolbox of what type of knowledge do I bring to elevink, I realized that since I moved to the United States 24 years ago, I have been taking larger and larger opportunities at the companies that I have worked with, right? I started by just taking all of the Spanish speaking not claimants So we used to pay disability claims. I was at a Fortune 500, and that was my job, pay disability claims. And I started to realize that my coworkers were taking calls for people who were ill, who couldn't work, and we needed to use a translator company to help us understand what was their treatment, when was their next office visit, what type of diagnosis. Imagine we were using medical terminology. When you're using a
Mm-hmm.
translator, it didn't translate well. So I started by like, let me help you, and I'll start taking all of those Spanish speaking calls. Then a few years later, I helped that same company create an end to end approach in which we could take all of the Spanish speaking calls from the call center all the way to a claim manager that spoke Spanish, to a nurse that spoke Spanish. We started to create some letters. And little by little, I started to realize the power, what once looked as a disadvantage because
Mm-hmm.
I had an accent, English was not my first language, etc. All of a sudden I could leverage that knowledge and actually create a better customer experience for all of those claimants that we were supporting that didn't speak the language.
Right.
Then, right? And then I took that same knowledge and I took it a level up where when I came to a healthcare company that I was working, I implemented something similar, but then I took it to the next level, which meant that I started to help our recruiting department in creating relationships with universities to be able to look at the talent pipeline, specifically Hispanics, in
Mm-hmm.
different geographical locations.
Mm-hmm.
So just by doing things that you're passionate about, because this was not my job, right? I mean, I have a
Right.
full
Yeah.
time, right? You have your full time job, and then on top of that, you start to implement and connect the dots and start to realize the needs and hear directly from people. I created the first mentorship program at this company. So again, taking into consideration everything that I've learned, everything that I had put in practice, created contracts, templates, expectations for the mentor, for the mentee, the launching, how are we going to select so everything that you do later on in life, you can bring it all together to
Mm-hmm.
now create a business model that is
Mm-hmm.
going to help companies be able to retain and develop their employees, right? Because the thing is, there's a lot of expense associated with hiring, right? You have to create the posting, you have to announce it in different platforms, you have to interview, you have to
Mm-hmm.
onboard the person. So great. Now you have that talent. Now you have that valuable asset inside your organization. But guess what? If they don't feel included, if there's not an inclusive culture and they feel alone, because once they walk into corporate America, there's not a lot of people that look like them and who can help them navigate the organizational waters.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
may feel lost, and guess what? They may have to leave the company. Even though they were
Right.
a great asset, you may
Mm-hmm.
not be able to get your return on investment on that person because they're hardworking and they can be resilient, but sometimes they need some sort of a guidance. They need an infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we are proposing, to create
Mm-hmm.
a community that is going to walk along the side of this talent and this, individuals that need to be represented. I mean, the facts, and your audience
Oh
knows
yeah,
the
we've
facts.
been
Right?
there, right? Yes,
Right?
it's like
I mean,
you're I hear you speak and I'm like, wow. So throughout the years, Claudia found her purpose. In every situation while she was doing her full-time job, she still managed to find time to invest in purposeful work, and to try to find solutions for what you were probably experiencing, but people around you were experiencing too. And look at that. After all of these years, you've been able to, it's not even bundle, it's what you said, leverage all of these things and create a comprehensive approach to dealing with people and with talent that might be considered different, right? But they still can bring something to the table, and actually you have to bring them on board because you're missing out by having them on board. Hmm.
Exactly. And it took a while for me to get there, for me
Yeah.
to believe and understand how much value could I bring to the table by looking at things from my personal background.
Yeah.
I grew up in Mexico. I lived several years by the border of, Mexico and California. So I used to have a bicultural life. I lived in Mexico, but I went to school and worked in San Diego, California. So technically, I was completely bicultural, bilingual. When you understand that, that's a subculture
in itself. Yeah.
Exactly. Then I lived in California, where the majority of the Hispanics are Mexican American, like myself. 7 years ago, I moved to New Jersey, and wow, there's not a lot of Mexicans. There's more, people from other countries like Puerto Rico and Colombia and, Ecuador, etc. And that's when I started to realize that there's pockets of groups and associations and organizations. So that whole unification and understanding that we're in this together. I mean, yes, we may have different backgrounds, but we need to find common grounds to support each other. So, and that's also when I learned that I was doing a lot of somewhat introspective, meaning that I was helping on my own and I was helping the company that I was working for. And about 4 years ago, I decided it was funny. It was on my birthday, which is August. And I was, meditating, and I finally gave in. I finally said, if I need to really move forward with creating this purpose, if this is the reason, my mission in life, I need to like embrace it, and not only embrace it, but make it the best version that it could be, right? Yeah. So I promised myself that I was going to say yes to every opportunity. So that's when I was invited to my first podcast, and I was like, yeah, sure. I was afraid because I had never done it, So the first time you step out of your comfort zone, you question yourself. Am I really that valuable? Do I really have something to say? Will someone be interested in what I have to share, etc. Right? I was invited to participate outside of the company into a coalition. I started to create bigger and be bolder with my ideas. And it paid off. It paid off because that's when I really started to network outside of my company. That's when I realized how much opportunities that I have, but also how much I could support other larger initiatives. And that's how I have met great people who have really been there to support me. People, and I'm like that. If somebody comes to me and says, "Can you help me on this?" I'll find a way, because I feel like we all need each other.
Absolutely.
Time, right?
Yes, totally. Yeah, I think that's very important. And I think you were mentioning before about LinkedIn. Sometimes people are afraid of approaching each other, or don't know how to do it. And I always say just be real and not too pitchy, because I mean we're all experiencing this pandemic, right? And we all know somebody that either has lost someone or that is suffering financial hardship, and so just reach out, with respectful curiosity. And I want to say that at least 9 out of 10 times you'll get a good response, because I think deep down, people do want to help. They do want to help.
Yes, and this year that's exactly how it started. I was at one of the last galas events before the pandemic in January, and I was talking to someone, and I was telling that person, I said, I really wish that maybe I'm starting to think that I could open my own company, that I could start trying something different, etc. Yeah. And she said, I think you should do it, and I'm going to help you. And she invited me to a class that she was hosting, and it was a 12-week course. She didn't even say what the class was about, but she created a cohort actually on how to take your small business idea and put it into a small business plan during those 12 weeks. So every week we will touch upon one of the elements that needs to be included on a business plan. So your marketing plan, and who is your audience? Who are your customers? How are you going to penetrate them?
Your competition.
Exactly. Right? And all of a sudden, when I was invited to participate to the class, and I told my husband, I said, oh, Minue invited me to this class. It's an all-day class, but she didn't say what it was about. And my husband said, oh, don't worry, go. It was an entire Saturday. And then when I realized at the end, we needed to step up, in front of the whole
And
group
present.
and present what was our business. And I swear, when I you know step in there, it just came out. I just said, I am the owner, because we needed to speak in present terms, right? Not even I will be or anything.
Yeah, yeah.
In present. So I said, I am the owner of a talent firm that specializes on underrepresented and blah 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 blah. And then from there on, I started to build the model.
Yeah.
And when we finished the course, I'm like, I'm not gonna stop now. Let's take it to. So I registered the company on June 17th of this year. So it's been only been in business.
I'm so happy for you. That's awesome.
For 3 months. So that's really how it came about. It came from an idea to an invitation to encouragement to getting to this point where we are.
That's really fantastic. I really congratulate you for taking the leap. And I know that you already kicked off your first cohort now in August. And so talk to me about what the initiative was. I know that it was a comprehensive program that was going to provide opportunities for students, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so there's two things. So the cohort is about to start in October.
In October, okay.
Yes, that's going to be 8 weeks. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But what we kicked off in the summer was our internship program. So we recruited 4 students from different areas. We had one person from California, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and New Jersey. And what we did is we created a comprehensive plan. Joanna Feliciano is my right hand. She's the chief operating officer of elevink, and she is a doctorate student who is specializing in diversity and inclusion. Nice. So we put this group of 4 individuals under her guidance. And what we wanted to do is really do a pilot in regards of how much can they learn and how much can they apply. I'm all about applying what you know and executing, because people can have great ideas, magnificent concepts, but if you don't get to the execution and results, then
it's all talk.
Exactly. The idea is that, so it's better to start with something small and learn and change and modify the approach and learn from there than just keep wanting it to be all perfect and then you never get to actually execute it. So that's exactly what happened. We put together a 6-week plan. I had external speakers come and speak to them. They each selected a project. They partnered with Joanna. And we also provided them a LinkedIn certification on diversity and inclusion.
Nice.
So that by the time we finished the 6 weeks, they would have a very good understanding of what unconscious bias is, how to create a cultural integration training, like looking at the different areas of underrepresentation and what does it take to be able to to make job descriptions that resonate with those individuals. I mean, it's amazing what we learn through that process. So, so they, and then also, I also brought the CEO of a new company to talk about the entrepreneurial spirit and how do you pitch in? Because what I wanted to make sure that they understood is that this is a startup company. So we're moving really fast. Things are happening real time. We are adjusting. It's not like you're coming into a corporation. I mean, for God's sakes, we registered on June and the program started July 1st, right?
Right.
So we were recruiting them even before the company started. So we got great reviews. They perform extremely well. They gave us a few points of feedback. And then from there, now we are creating the professional cohort, which is focusing on senior business students and young professionals. So we're exactly.
And August is when you were recruiting, and now you're going to actually do it. Because I'm like, that's because I read the message you had shared with me, and I saw August, but that's what it was. You were launching, right? The program, the recruitment aspect of it.
Exactly.
For the cohort.
I want to make sure that, I don't know when this is going to come out, but the applications are open until September 30th. So if anyone is listening, we would like them to consider.
I'll add the link. I'll make sure to add the link then. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And again, it's an amazing program. We're gonna have four professional trainers that will join us to perform some of the courses. We are partnering with some companies that will bring their recruiting department to talk about, our professional cohort about what is it that they're looking for when they're receiving applications. What are some of the competencies? But we really want to take it again to the level where I want to make sure that we are applying what they learn and putting them in, giving them challenges or small
Mm-hmm.
tasks where they have to go outside of their comfort zone. Because I think that stepping out of your comfort zone, it's really the only way that we learn,
Yeah.
and that we start to look back and say, I cannot believe I did,
Right, X,
Y,
Y,
Z.
Z, and it's like real life business situations. So what you're looking for are seniors in business, right? With a
Mhm.
major, with a
Major
GP
or minor? Yeah,
of a
major or
major or minor, right? GPA of 3.0 or higher, right? Or it could be a recent business graduate, right? Also with 3.0 or higher, even a business professional, if you're a business professional with 0 to 7 years of experience, a business major that's re-entering now the workforce after a gap, right?
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah,
because
that, yeah,
we did, on the research that we did, there are many, perhaps mothers or fathers, that have taken a step back because they have been focusing on being at home with their children. So they may have
right.
the educational background,
Yeah,
but then they have a 7 to 10 year gap and things
yeah,
have changed. They may feel that they are not necessarily prepared to re-enter the workforce, and I want to make sure that they have a community of people so that they can fall on each other, they can learn from each other. I think there's so much power on the collective,
yeah,
wins, of a group, and everyone is feeding of each other, right? So
uh-huh.
we can bring a great professional development coach, but as much as we have conversations and they feed from each other, I think that expands the opportunity for learning. And again, you're still promoting that diverse, you know, thought process,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. And so you're encouraging anybody who falls within the BIPOC community, which is Black, Indigenous, person of color, Hispanic, or female, also veteran, LGBTQ plus, or people with disabilities to participate. So anybody that falls within an
Yeah.
underrepresented or underserved community.
Exactly, exactly. Because again, with the VetNet community, we find that the research that we did found that they are extremely qualified for so many different roles and all the years of experience that they bring, but sometimes getting that transferable skill
Yes.
identified and
Yeah.
how they sell themselves, and sometimes that emotional connection, right? Emotional intelligence in the business
Mm-hmm.
world, it's such an important competency. And sometimes or VetNet may not necessarily have spent a lot of time on that emotional connection and emotional intelligence. So
Yeah.
how can we help them translate what they've done, what they've learned, and all those transferable skills into a way that resonates with the business and what
Right.
recruiters can help us with?
Right. Absolutely. What I loved about your note when you put out the announcement, right, that you were asking people to participate and offering up this opportunity to participate in the program, is that you put that if you have a 2.6 to 3 point GPA, please still apply and tell us the reason why, because we know that your GPA might be affected because you're a caregiver, or you all of a sudden became a single parent, or XYZ, it could have impacted your studies. Mm-hmm.
Yes. again, we find that especially, well, with all the underrepresented, but we focus specifically on that question on Hispanics, and we realize that a lot of the people and students within the Hispanic populations, they may have to work full time and go
Mm-hmm.
to school full time to be able to care for their expenses because their
Mm-hmm.
parents or their family members may be able to support them with a certain portion, but they may have to still pay for their books and pay for their
Yeah.
transportation and other things. And when you look at the overall holistic profile of that individual, you're right. They're probably learning sometimes more, or they're getting more experience because they're working full time and they're making those sacrifices and they're learning to time manage themselves combined with school. And maybe that GPA is not necessarily reflective of their potential, right?
Because
And
they're
again,
exhausted. Maybe they couldn't study that extra 2 hours because they just had needed some sleep. you know?
yes, or they don't have the time to go to tutors, right?
Yeah.
Because or
Yeah.
they don't have the sometimes the money to be able to pay for the tutors. It could be so
Yeah,
many
so
different
many
things.
reasons. Yes, yeah. I'm just speaking from experience. Like whenever I was doing poorly, it's because, oh my God, do I study an extra 2 hours or do I just take a nap because I'm exhausted?
Yes,
Yeah.
and we've been there, right? I mean, we've
Yes.
been there, and at the end of the day, it shouldn't be necessarily a reflection. Unfortunately, there are some
Yeah.
companies that they only hire from certain schools, they only hire with a specific GPA, they only hire,
Hmm.
and that's the systemic change that I'm referring about, right?
Yeah.
Because when we are looking for people that look like us, feel like us, sound like us, we are not necessarily opening
Right.
that inclusive perspective, and we may
Hmm.
be limiting ourselves into. Plus, it's believed that those individuals that have to work and study at the same time tend to be more creative, right? Because they
Hmm.
have to be able
And
to juggle.
versatile. Yeah,
Ex-
they're juggling so many things at the same time. Yeah,
yeah, they
totally.
can cope. They can cope with stress better. They're more resilient. I mean, there's so many attributes and capacity that is built from starting, early on. So
Yes.
we're
Yeah.
definitely trying to promote that it's a matter of being able to also create a narrative around it, right? So how do
Yes.
you create that narrative around yourself? And that's
Right.
something that we are also putting a lot. There's also something, there's two things I want to tell you. So one of the things I want to make sure is that people feel comfortable telling their story, and
Mm.
that they feel good about sharing their milestones. It doesn't come easy because I know that whenever I
Yeah.
need to talk about right achievement, we tend to shy away from there because we don't want to sound arrogant,
Mm.
etc. But it's important that we feel comfortable and tell that story and that narrative in a way that makes sense. Because our parents normally said, trabajen mucho, study hard, work hard,
So keep your head down and just do the work and yeah, and be
and
ethical and all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and of course, the ethical part, yes, but we need to work smart, right?
Yes.
Because yes, as much as we're working hard to prove that, they're worth it, we also need to look up and look at the future and say, oh, but I can also do this, and I want to
Yeah.
meet with that person, and I want to be able to take this leadership role, etc.
Right.
So telling our stories, church, ensuring that we have a personal brand and
Hmm.
that we feel comfortable about our social image and what we share, it's important. But also one thing that I added to the course is my sister is a chef and she's a sommelier. And as I was putting the course together, I asked her, I said, can you create a social etiquette course or just one class where
Hmm.
you can talk to the cohort about wines, where you can talk the cohort about, certain regions and food, and because what I realized is like, okay, if the cohort that I'm creating is a business major, eventually they're gonna have to have dinners with high executives, and you need
Hmm.
to be able to speak to, sometimes the conversations in business and networking do not always revolve around business. Many of
Right.
the times, right, it has
Yeah.
that other perspective. So she's helping craft together a kind of like a social etiquette 101, and we can
Hmm.
introduce some of those concepts because I thought like, what, let's make it a more well-rounded and
Hmm.
realize that etiquette, manners, and certain things about understanding, depending on where we are and understanding the culture of those that we're dealing with, it's
Hmm.
important, right?
Yes.
And so we're gonna be adding that as the
I
last
think
course.
that's a really cool idea. I should put you in touch with another friend that we had him on the podcast too. He does golf clinics for the same reason, to help
Okay.
underrepresented communities gain access to the golf course, and to know how to play the game. Well, because we all know that white males still, run a lot of the stuff going on in corporate America, and they like to play golf. So, so,
Yes.
but it's interesting because you're right. Like these, it's like, what are these conversations that take place at the dinner table when you're in a business environment? And it's important to be able to chime in or not
Ex-
look like a deer in headlights. Like, okay, what are they talking about?
exactly. So the way that I see it is just helping them be equipped,
Hmm.
and like you said, that curiosity, right? So we're
Right.
just gonna give them a little taste of that, a little bit of
Yeah.
an introduction,
Yeah.
etc. But then it's really up to them to realize that,
To
oh,
pursue.
this is
Yeah.
interesting, right? I
Yeah.
mean, who would
Yeah.
know that people study 4 years to learn everything about wines, right?
Yeah.
How it's created, to
Yeah.
the development, to how to
Yeah.
market it, etc.
Yes.
So
Totally. That is so cool. Very, very, very cool. That's great. So then after the 10 weeks training, because it's a 10-week program, right? So they'll be ready to rock and roll in 2021, right? When things start opening up. And even online, I think a lot of them employers, and there are a lot of them opportunities from a virtual standpoint, in the sense where I think people aren't so adverse to
mhm.
doing business now, mostly online. So, what are the key takeaways that you feel the participants of this cohort will get from being involved in the program?
Yes, number one, I think the realization that they already have the educational experience, right?
Hmm.
And that's a plus. I mean, I'm not gonna give them the educational. They bring either their 3 years because they're finished, or they bring, some of the cohort have MBAs.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's understanding how to navigate the culture. From hearing directly from the recruiters, they're going to
Hmm.
understand what are some of the competencies. And we're going to be able to talk about fundamental concepts that are necessary to be successful
Mm.
in the business environment. And
Yeah.
at the end, we're also recruiting mentors from different aspects. So they're going to have a mentor relationship so that they know what if they've never had a mentor from the business environment, they're going
Hmm.
to know what it looks like. A
Yeah.
mentor is not a professor. A mentor is not a teacher. A mentor is not a friend, right? A mentor is there to challenge you, to
Right.
help, to ask you questions. Sometimes people may feel like, oh, he's going to tell me what I need to do. No, a mentor is going to ask you questions, is going to push you to think of topics differently, and it's going to help you grow, and it's going to help you come out with your own answers and what your beliefs are, right? So it's about that mentor. Then they're going to have a community of people. Everyone who was in their cohort plus their trainers are now people that they have in their network. So
Right.
right, how are they going to leverage each other so that
Yeah.
they can support each other? I want them to become advocates of elevink, where
Uh-huh.
if this was something that they value, help me, by sharing this message so that we can get the next cohort, hopefully by early 2021.
Yeah.
So, so this pilot is going to help us. We're going to have an assessment at the
Uh-huh.
beginning so that we can rate how they're starting, where they see themselves,
Hmm.
etc. And then we're going to be able to also evaluate at the end. And what I'm asking them to do on our last meeting is they have to do a presentation of what they learned, how are they going to apply it, and one thing that they're willing to change, because I want to do touch points every 3 months after we end the cohort so that I can keep track of their successes. And one thing that I can, if I may ask,
Yes.
you have put there as an option. So I'm really looking to see if I can find a sponsor company that will be willing to help sponsor the cost of managing the program and supporting it, because everything is free for the participants. There's
Yes.
absolutely no cost to them. That is, when I created elevink, I created it with the goal in mind that I wanted to create a social impact company. I want to make
Awesome.
sure that it's a win-win-win. It's a
Yeah.
win for them because they're not being charged. It's a win for for our community, because now we're preparing individuals who are going to be earning what they deserve, and
Yes.
at the same time, right, they're going to be able to amplify the impact that they're having in the community. They're going to become role models to other family members and friends that may be hesitant about, could the American dream be achieved? And I'm hoping that they could be a role model of that. And
Yeah.
then it's a win for organizations because they can tap directly into the cohort, interview them, and hire directly. So this will help them reduce the expenses on the hiring cost and the conversion rate, because between the time that you post the position until you apply, until you select the candidate, every single day it's money that is
Yeah.
lost, right? So I'm trying to, create
It's
a
like an
shorter.
yeah, it's accelerating that connectivity between great talent and great opportunities. That's basically it. Hmm.
Exactly, you got it. So,
Yeah.
so,
Love it.
so that's
Oh,
that's
let's
in
put
a
it out there.
nutshell.
Shout out. I'm gonna tag a couple of people I know actually when we
Oh,
post
okay.
this, because yeah, because there's a need for this, and just based on your experience and everything, I know this is gonna be just fantastic. So how many people are you looking to have in this first cohort?
We started with 40 and we realized that that was too aggressive, so we narrowed down to 20.
Okay, no, that's
And
great. Yeah,
yes,
perfect. Yeah. It's actually better because it makes it more intimate too, and you can really, right, have more in-depth conversations, and the relationship
e-
building is more profound. Yeah.
exactly. And the great thing is that now that it's virtual, we are accepting applications from all over the
Everywhere.
United
How
the United
awesome, right?
States.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we do have a few people in California that have already applied, and one of our professional trainers is in California. He's in Silicon Valley.
Great.
So we're really trying to maximize and leverage both of the ends of the United States, the West
Yes.
Coast and the East Coast, and merge it, right? Because what a better time to provide this. Before it was very regional or
Yes.
limited to a specific geographical location, but nowadays it could be done anywhere. So we're
Yeah.
trying to maximize the power of virtual.
Yes. And once they're done, you're gonna have 20, right,
Yes,
professionals that represent, right, diverse communities, ready to go. How awesome is that? I'm really excited about this. I know, that we talked at length a few months ago, and this was still, in the pot cooking, but
yes,
now seeing it come to fruition, it's really just so awesome. You're awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this. Today I learned a lot. I know that this is going to be valuable for a lot of people that are out there, and trying to figure out how to or what to do, in during these trying times. But this is a solid opportunity to really be able to take whatever your plans were, if you're in the business community, to a whole other level, and start off on the right foot in 2021, right?
exactly. Yes, and
Yeah.
become a Hispanic star for those of us who are Hispanic. And
Yes,
by the way, we're still in the month of celebration, so congratulations for a happy Hispanic Heritage Month to you.
yes, and to you too, Claudia. It was so nice to have you on the show, and it would be great if you could return with one of the graduates of the first cohort. Wouldn't that be awesome? to
That
talk
would
about
be
the experience. Yeah, let's share a success story in a few months.
yes.
How's that? Okay,
That's
deal?
perfect.
Okay,
That's
let's
the
do
deal.
this. We're gonna do this. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify and iTunes as well. There's more to come next week. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to speak up.